Hello everyone, I'm Jason. Today I want to share with you a workflow for the qwen migration or the replacement of everything. The qwen Plus model recently released has greatly improved the generation rate of my previous workflow. That is the rate of the workflow for changing the dress and background that I shared with you before. It can do most of my previous work with just one model. There is no need to use many models like this, including a stream for migration or control. Before talking about this workflow, I will share with you a platform. Because the local requirements for this model or workflow are getting higher and higher, my workflow may require 16 video memory. This platform is RunningHub. It can provide us with a 48GB Slim 90 graphics card, which is completely for us to use most of the current workflow. Now, through the introduction area, you will get 1,000 points, and you will get 100 points every day when you log in. There is also a free quick creation here. You can see free and fast creation here. It will provide us with a certain amount of money every day, allowing us to have a free experience. It can help us to have tattoos, pictures, and pictures. And the latest banana, this powerful banana model, can also be used for us to experience for free. Then I will update the workflow regularly on my homepage. You can come here and give it a try. Now that the book is back to the point, let's take a look at this workflow. First of all, this workflow is an enlarged workflow based on the qwen Imagi DIT 509's graph production workflow and subsequent context processing. The previous one is responsible for generating a desired scene and a clothing migration. The latter one is responsible for amplification. Next, let's take a look at these two parts in detail. The first part is the process of signing. One point to pay attention to here is to prompt words. I'll put it here for everyone. The first thing to do is to be as detailed as possible. It is because this prompt word is to generate a background effect for us. So if we can describe it in more detail, or as detailed as possible, or as much as possible, or as possible describe the scene effect we want, then the background effect that it can generate for us will be very good. Another thing to note is that the node we use is the node of Xiaoji. It can help us provide references to many images. But here we should pay attention to why I only made a reference for a graphic here. In other words, a background repaint was first performed? Because first of all, if we directly refer to these multi-pictures directly in one step, that is, we let it generate a video ourselves, and then change it, the effect it will generate is not particularly good. You can see here. If I take all the steps to create a background and change it, you can see that it will. One is that it will, sometimes it cannot show the whole body. The second is that its position is relatively fixed and will always appear in the central position. This is an effect after I ran the picture, that is, it always appears in the middle of this process. I won't say that the location is free. This will happen if we ask the model to process it at one time. So the first step I have is to generate a background for a single image. First, generate a single image background. Then we proceed to the next migration step. Another issue to note is that if this model repaints locally, it may have a smaller impact on one of our faces or other parts of us. But if it is like generating a large background, a relatively large redrawing situation, it may affect our faces. But you can also see that it is quite perfect for our other parts and is quite good. You even look like this one of the clothes here. The badges are actually considered, that is, the American and Chinese tribes will have a greater change in their faces. In fact, we can solve this problem through a face change in the later stage. because it actually already has certain characteristics of its face here. You can see that there are references to certain references, but it changes greatly. When we later undergo a face change, we actually only need to go through a simple face change. This can achieve similarity in our faces. The face is similar. These are two problems. Another thing is to say, this flow is this new model. If you add this 4-step or 8-step Lennings roller, it's actually very fast. After I tested it, it might take only 10 seconds to use a 5090 graphics card. Sometimes it's enough to save 10 seconds, which is still very fast. The next step is to reach this migration part. The migration part is actually intelligently used in a model that is consistent with the above generation background model. This is what I said earlier, why such a model can make some of our steps very convenient. It can pass through a model and then sample multiple times. In fact, most of the operations can be accomplished. Then here we need to use a reference for our two images. One is to enter the front image with the background changed. Another one is a scene picture from us. For product pictures, it is best for everyone to use a white background. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't need a white background, just do a simple cutout. You can see that here we need to make a reference for two images. Then I added a Genius Pro Image Backward Prompt Word node. Use this model. One advantage of this node and model is that it generates a relatively efficient one, compared to a Beta 1 model of Joy Caption we shared earlier. It greatly improves our generation speed. Basically, in about 10 seconds, we can basically deduce one of our prompt words. So you can see us. The conversion of F is very natural. Including our knowledge. Include the location of one of our images. It is relatively random. What if we said it was one time? It generates this effect. As you can see, it is actually much worse. This is why it is necessary to divide it into 2 steps to implement one implementation. Then here comes the next one. I did a noise increase process. It is the VR procurement process using C. You can see that we generate this picture directly. In fact, there are many things that are not very clear. Or there is a situation where there is an overexposed situation. There is an unclear and vague situation here. So we need to regenerate noise. We're using a CVR and TCP processing process here. It can help us increase a lot of noise. That is to say, it can make our pictures clearer. It won't be vague. Everyone may be familiar with CSVR here. Mainly, everyone can take the discretion here. Use it according to your own hardware situation. Of course, if it is bigger, of course, the better the generation effect. Then after we generate a picture with higher definition, then we have another face replacement, because you can find that the face is not very similar. So I can just use the reactor face change, because we have just said it. When we generated this picture before, my face to this character, there is already a certain reference to our model's face. So we just need to do a simple reactor face change. It can achieve a good facial replacement effect. You can see. At this time, it is actually more similar to our original character. In fact, to this part. In fact, some of our operations have been completed. I added a context enlargement behind it, including the fusion of light and shadow. A new enhancement was made. This means I added these LoRa. You can also follow your needs. Change some LoRa. Then I still use higher's LoRa here. A high-definition lossless amplification was performed. Of course, I have to mention it here. That is to say, this part will take a longer time. Although the effect quality will be better after it is enlarged, but it will take longer to generate. We basically went to CVR for about 1 minute before. If you are using 4090 or 5090, this part may be about 1 minute. Or more than a minute. Maybe it's finished here. But this part basically takes up our main time. So you should still refer to it when using it later. But I have to. Although it takes a long time, this effect is very good. Put it so big. Seeing that there is no white part, including light and shadow, it basically undergoes a reintegration, which looks more realistic and clearer. Our resolution has reached such a large resolution. This is probably what our stream is like. If you have any ideas, you can also send me a private message in the comment section. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you.